Good morning. If you have ever played a sport or activity with Taylor Whitney Lee, like football, track, golf, or snowboarding, would you please stand and remain standing? And I'd like to invite the family to just kind of rotate in your seats so you can watch this. If you've gone to school with Taylor Whitney Lee, will you please stand and remain standing? If you have been a teacher or a coach or an administrator of Taylor's, will you please stand? If you've ever worked with Taylor, will you please stand? If Taylor has ever helped you with a problem, or lightened your mood with his words or pictures, or helped your day just by being Taylor, will you please stand? If you consider Taylor Whitney Lee your friend, will you please stand? If you are here in support of anyone standing right now, will you please stand? If you are part of Taylor's family, will you please stand? I'd invite anybody else to please stand. While we're all standing, will you please join me in acknowledging the gifts that Taylor brought, the influence he's had, the joy and spontaneity he's shown us, and the remarkable passion within Taylor's world that influenced all of you. You can be seated. For 13 days, Taylor's world has felt loss. Our world. These voids are heart-wrenching, but days like today can provide the beginning of healing. We hug, we swap stories, we remember. We try to make sense of the senseless. We try to put rational thought to an extremely emotional situation. But most of all, we just lean on each other. We let our guards down and allow ourselves to express how this makes us feel. I'll start. This sucks. I didn't know Taylor well, but I knew him. I knew his athleticism. I knew his potential. I knew his spirit. I knew his humor and his loyalty and his promise. So I'm sad that we don't get to see this play out. What I didn't know was his courage. On the night of August 10th, 3 men in a truck crested a hill just north of Scio. Traveling down that hill was a combine followed by several cars. The 3 men knew they couldn't stop and jointly made a decision to veer off instead of plowing into the cars. Taylor has been called a hero, and he is. But there were 3 heroes in that truck that night: Taylor, Ernesto Jasmine, and Benjamin Jasmine. They were all in that truck, and with no time to debate the decision, all agreed to put their lives at risk. It was an impossible situation met by 3 men who allowed the possibilities for other lives to continue. 2 first responders, Lynn County Sheriffs, came onto the scene just by chance within seconds of the crash and gave aid to Ernesto and Benjamin. So the hero list grows. Today, all of you become part of that list for providing comfort and support to Taylor's family and to each other. You're all first responders to each other today. So cry and then laugh. Hold each other and then smile. Memories are windows to the past, but also wisdom and healing for the future. You've been grieving. So today, give yourselves permission to celebrate the life of Taylor Whitney Lee. At this time, I'd like to introduce John Kohler, who will offer us scripture to start that healing.
Thank you, Wally. As Paul the Apostle was nearing the end of his time here on earth, he wrote a couple of letters to one of his co-workers, a young man named Timothy. And in the second letter, chapter 4, verse 6, he says, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near." But in verse 7, he states, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." Next he says, "Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day." This is what Taylor would want all of us to know today. This is what we want to hear when we die, that we have fought the good fight, that we have kept the faith. But to keep the faith, you must have the faith. Not just any faith, but the faith that will allow us to see God, faith in Jesus. In Romans, the 3rd chapter, verse 23, it says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." We're all natural-born sinners, and there's a consequence for that sin. In Romans 6, a couple of chapters over, verse 23, it says, "The wages of sin is death." Now, this isn't a physical death, but a spiritual death, an eternal separation from God who created all and who loves us. And the end of that verse says, "But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ, our Lord." That's what Taylor wants us all to know. He'd want us to see Jesus when we die and receive our crown of righteousness because of our faith and trust in Him. None of us knows when our fight will be over. None of us knows when we will have finished the race. But Taylor would encourage all of us today to fight the good fight and keep the faith until we have finished that race and we step into the presence of God who offers us hope, and we receive our own crown of righteousness.
We're going to have remembrances by some of Taylor's friends. I'd like to invite, starting off, Cody Miller to come to the front.
Thank you, Wally. Let me see if I can lower this a little bit. I know Jared Gore's out there. He's coming up after me, so maybe lower this a little. What a beautiful looking group of people. Taylor's people. I want to thank you guys all for being here. These last 2 weeks, I've thought about what I could come up here and say that would honor Taylor the way that he deserves to be honored. Last night at about 9 p.m. when reality started to sink in and I realized that this is real and today was a few hours away, I sat down and I tried to put some words to paper. I tried to put some paragraphs together to honor Taylor, but as I struggled and I looked at the pictures of Taylor, I realized that one of the things that I appreciated so much about him was the way that he freestyled life. He knew what direction he wanted to go, and he let the wind carry him there. So to honor Taylor, that's what I want to do today. I've put in a few words on this piece of paper here and some pictures that I'd like to show you guys. But I just want to speak to you from my heart. And rather than the wind guiding me, I know that Taylor's up here, and he's gonna he's going to get me through it, just like he got all of us through these last 2 weeks. I'd be remiss if I didn't start by recognizing some people in the crowd today, starting with Detective Lovick and Officer Bebo. For those of you that don't know, as Wally mentioned, those two officers arrived at the scene seconds after the crash occurred. Detective Lovick was able to put the flames out in the truck, while Officer Bebo was able to pull Ben Jasmine from the vehicle. You two men are heroes to me and to all of us, and I want to let you know how thankful that I am, and that I will never miss an opportunity to shake your guys' hands whenever I see you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the fire department who were able to get Paco from the vehicle minutes after. Truly a miracle. Next, I want to recognize Ben and Paco. Taylor executed on a split-second decision that saved a lot of people's lives, but there's no doubt in my mind that that decision was made as a group by all three of you. You two men are heroes as well. You saved a lot of people's lives, and more than that, I want to thank you for being there for Taylor in his last seconds. Taylor was strong and courageous, and it's because he had you two there with him. You guys rode out together, and that's the kind of people you are. And Taylor loved you, and so do we. I want to recognize my dad and just say thank you for everything that you've done for Taylor and me and our friends. Taylor loved you, he respected you, he loved working for you. And I know that all your guys do. You haven't always been dealt winning hands, but you've always remained able to put other people first, and that's something that I love about you so much. And it's an honor to be your son and to know that Taylor worked for you and you took care of him. One quick story I'd like to share. Taylor didn't tell many people about this, but he took care of the Knox Butte Cemetery graveyard, and he took care of those gravestones. He mowed the grass, and Dad, I want to thank you for giving him that opportunity, but more I want to tell you guys how much he appreciated that and how honored he was to do that. And I'm really happy to say that that's where Taylor's going to be buried, there at Knox Butte. And it makes me proud to know, Dad, that you're going to be just a few yards away from him someday. Haley, if I can get this clicker to work. Katie, maybe you can go to the next slide for me. Haley, I wanted to show this picture because it reminds me a lot of both of you and how Taylor was such a goofy weirdo, and you just loved him, every second of every day, and I know that he loved you back. And I hope that you can find comfort in knowing that everybody here loved him too, and that he was yours, and all the lives that he touched. So thank you. I'm always here for you. We all are, and we love you. Brad, so I don't know if you've seen this picture, but it says, "Happy Father's Day to my best friend. I love you, Dad. I strive to make you proud every day." That was the truth. Taylor, his life mission, he had 2 life missions. The first one was to make you proud, and I know that you made him proud, and I know that Taylor made you proud, and you should be very proud of the way that you raised him and the way that you raised your entire family. So thank you for that. So this is something that he posted about you, Chantel. He says, "Victory to me is when you get your moms right." And for those of you that don't understand that lingo, Taylor's gangster talk, what he was saying there is that victory in his life, his goal, is to someday be able to take care of his mom. And I don't think Taylor fully realized how much he's taken care of you from day one, and I know you do. So thank you. Kyle and Aaron, Taylor looked up to you guys and respected you so much. He talked about you guys all the time. He was proud of you guys. He cared about you guys. And this picture means a lot because it shows just kind of how your whole family loved. I don't know if you guys can see the text up there, but it's just all of them telling them how much they love each other. And I think if we can learn something from Taylor, it's to always tell the people around you and your family how much they mean and how much you love them, because you never know when that last time will be. So now a little bit about Taylor. The first thing you need to know about Taylor and I is that we fought like brothers. 50% of the time, we fought like brothers. Usually about the Ducks or the Beavers, Seahawks or the Ravens, about where we're going to get lunch. I mean, just anything. But the second thing you need to know is that we loved each other like brothers. I have a lot of nicknames for Taylor, and he's got a lot for me. Taylor's family's asked me that I not share any of those with you, being that we're inside of a church right now, so I'm going to respect those wishes. But you know, Taylor's mom said something to me last Thursday, and it was that Taylor marched to the beat of his own drum, and I think that's so true. You know, a few words that describe Taylor to me: loud, obnoxious, adventurous, over the top. So he was loud in the way that he played his music, in the way that he would show up to somebody's house or anywhere for that matter. He was obnoxious. For example, he used to come over to my house or my dad's house and immediately go to the fridge. My dad always had snacks, he still does, and immediately go to the fridge, eat everything in sight, and then as he was leaving, he'd be stuffing his pockets full of more food to take home with him. That's just one of the many obnoxious Taylor stories, and I know he's got a bunch about me too. Adventurous, you know, whether on a snowboard or golf clubs or longboard, just looking for a good time. I mean, he was down for an adventure, and I think that's why, you know, me and him and all of you clicked so much. But he was over the top about everything he did. Most importantly, the way that he loved everybody. He was completely over the top, and he wore it on his sleeve. And I want to thank all of you guys, because he loved all of you, and you're the ones that facilitated that and brought that out of Taylor. And the memories that I can think of just looking out here and seeing all your guys' faces is amazing, and that's what's going to keep him. That's what's going to keep him with us forever. He was unapologetically himself. 100% of the time, 100% himself. And I think, you know, another thing that we can learn from Taylor is that's the goal of life. That we can just be ourselves all the time, comfortable, happy, and never apologize. Never apologize for being yourself, and Taylor never did. And that's why we loved him so much. I want to share some words that were written by one of Taylor's friends. I think it describes the situation and Taylor beautifully, better than I could have, and so I'd like to share those words with you today. They were written by Savannah Hansloven. It starts with a quote. Nobody knows how to say goodbye. It seems so easy till you try. Then the moments passed you by. Nobody knows how to say goodbye. She starts by saying, it's been 1 week since I got the news, and there still isn't any part of me that believes it. I think I've avoided writing this because it seemed like I would have to accept that you're gone, and I don't want to. Our hearts are broken for you, for your family, for all of us. You are one of the most infectious souls I've ever known. You are a tough guy on the outside with the biggest heart on the inside. Words that come to mind when I think of you: kind, adventurous, strong yet sensitive, hilarious, brave, charming, generous, passionate, gangster, witty, sincere, loving, wild, and well, T, expletive Lee. That was one of my nicknames for him, by the way. Because you have always been yourself, nothing more, nothing less, in every moment of your life, and I think that's the biggest lesson we're all learning from you, to be yourself. Thank you, Taylor, for everything. This past weekend I felt so confused, so I did the only thing I know that usually settles my mind, and that was adventure. I hiked mile after mile, seeing sight after sight, hoping it would silence my mind, but what I realized out there is how thoughts became louder. But in a way, that made everything more clear. I talked to you a lot on the trail, laughed to myself about all the memories, and cried to myself about them too. Boy, did I cry. One night in particular, I set to catch a sunset overlooking 2 lakes, but when I passed a guy walking down, he asked if I'd ever been to this area before. I said no, so he proceeded to say, if you're not afraid of hiking back in the dark, you should send it to this overlook that's just a couple miles further. It'll be worth it. In that moment, the few words hit me like a ton of bricks. Not afraid, and send it. So I looked at him and I said, I'm never afraid, and I always send it. Because I know that's what you would have done. I finally got to the top and turned to see the sky on fire behind the face. I felt lucky. Fire behind the snowy minarets. Needless to say, I stood there for a few seconds trying to catch my breath as the tears started pouring down my face. I felt lucky to be able to do what I was doing, to see all these beautiful places. I also felt overwhelmingly angry that your time was cut short. But I also somehow knew you were seeing these beautiful places too. I don't know what happens after our time here on Earth stops, but somehow I think yours must be filled with Blazer games, duck games, epic powder turns, game concerts, and Jefferson tacos. I hope you know how loved you really were, how many of us looked up to you, and the amount of lives you impacted on your journey. Through all of this, I hope we learn, make sure to let people know that you care about them. Live a good life, share joy, spread peace, be kind to people. Be so kind. And if someday, too soon, your time comes, know that you lived out your days not in fear, not in hatred, but in love. And in moments like these, we love you forever. Taylor Whitney Lee. Taylor filled his life with only the things that he loved and was passionate about. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's another thing that we can learn from Taylor. I'd like you all to close your eyes for a second and imagine Taylor's face. And imagine everything that you do in a day, you think about, the things that fill your mind, that bring you joy and happiness and love. And just let those sink in for a second. Now I want you to picture the things that you do every day that don't bring you joy, that you don't enjoy doing, that you might not love to the fullest extent, that you might not be passionate about. Now look up. Get rid of those things. If you're doing something right now that doesn't make you happy, that you don't find passion in, get rid of those. And that's not me saying that, that's Taylor saying that. That's what Taylor would have wanted. And he was an example of that every day. He lived his life that way every single day. And I think that's all of our goals, is to be able to do that, to live in every moment with everything that we love around us. I did write one sentence on this paper, and I wrote that it's not how long you live, but how you live your life, how you fill your life. And Taylor filled it with love, beauty, and passion, and all of you guys, and I thank you for that. And before I get into a few pictures and share some stories of Taylor, I'd like to just thank all of you guys for all the text messages that I've received, that Taylor's family has received, that you've sent each other, for all the stories that we've heard, for the gentlemen that are going to come up here after me and share stories with Taylor. Thank you guys so much. That helps all of us more than you know. All right, let's get into some pictures here. This is probably my favorite picture of Taylor and I because it symbolizes our friendship to a T. You see him climbing up the side of a mountain with one hand on a rock and one hand holding his camera like he always did. And then you see me a little ways behind him, both hands on the rocks, Taylor showing no fear at all because he never did, and me basically crapping my pants behind him. And that was us. Taylor would always come up with these ideas, or we would do these crazy things, or whatever the case. And he was never scared, and I usually was. But I would follow Taylor anywhere, and I'll continue to do that. My dad used to ask me, if your friends jumped off of a bridge, would you do it too? And I can tell you that if any one of Taylor's friends jumped off a bridge, it's probably because Taylor did it first. That's just the kind of guy he was. That's what he did. And again, that's what we can learn from him, is just to be in the moment, to not be scared. And to Taylor's family and friends, the courage and the strength that you've showed, it's obvious to me where Taylor gets it from you guys. So thank you. How many of you guys knew Taylor used to live in Texas? Brad, I'm sorry for this one. Anybody? A trick question. This is actually a picture of Taylor's fake ID that him and I got together. I think Ben Woolard's over there. He had one too. I know there's some police officers here today. I won't tell you how old we were in these, but what I will say is it's been over 7 years, so I think that, gets me away from any sort of legal, trouble for sharing this story. But what I will say is Taylor died at 26. He looks 30 in this picture. I don't know. I tried to find a picture of mine, but I destroyed all the evidence. And luckily I could find this one. And Brad, you actually found this shortly after we got it. And being the good father that you were, would not give it back. And I remember being worried because in my picture I looked like I was 11. And I knew that I could never use it unless Taylor was there, because he's the only one that they would believe that was actually of age to go into a bar. So I think we made it into about 2 bars, and then the third one that I tried to get into, they immediately took it from me because I looked like McLovin, but Taylor never let me hear the end of that one. So this is a picture of us. This is the last full concert that Taylor and I went to. It was J. Cole in Eugene, and I'm a huge Beaver fan, and Taylor's obviously a huge Duck fan. He spotted Dennis Dixon randomly. I've been spending the last several years trying to forget Dennis Dixon existed, but he pulled me in that picture with him, made me take that picture, and I knew that he just did it so that he could make fun of me about it for the rest of my life. But the look on Taylor's face at that concert is something I'll never forget. Just in the moment, music is what Taylor loved. It's what made Taylor happy, and concerts like this are really what he enjoyed doing. I say this is the last full concert we went to because here several months ago, we went to see The Game in Portland, which was actually the first concert Taylor and I ever saw. The concert never happened. The Game never came on because allegedly, from Taylor's side of the story, somebody in The Game's entourage had pulled a gun and fired off a shot. So everybody was running, scared for their lives, the scariest thing that I've ever been involved with. And then you look over and you see Taylor trying to figure out what's going on, like going towards the gun. He just wanted to see the game and wanted to see what was happening. And so I'll never forget that about him. When everybody else is running scared, Taylor's right there, and he doesn't care. The guy did not feel pain. He did not feel scared in anything that he did. Last story here. So my dad took us to a Blazer game. I think this was a couple of years ago, and we had really good seats, and the whole time, I wanted to watch them warm up. We were feet from them, and Taylor just wanted to make this sign. And I was like, Taylor, what are you doing, man? Let's go out and watch these guys warm up. He's like, no, I'm going to get on TV. I'm going to get on TNT. It's going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And I was like, no way. But I followed him around. We walked all the way around looking for this sign-making station, and sure enough, Taylor made it on television. You can see me to the right of him, to his left, just sulking in the fact that I knew he'd been on TV like 14 times because everybody kept texting him pictures and he'd shove them right in my face. But I'd like to think that I got the last laugh because when we got home the next day, this picture of Taylor is just hilarious. When we got home the next day, how many people have seen Billy Madison, the Water Boy? Dead ringer. I mean, are you kidding me? He wasn't as happy. He didn't think that was as funny as I thought it was, but I'm glad that you guys can have a little bit of laughter in that. But I love this picture, and I'm going to hold on to this for a long time. Lastly, I wanted to leave you guys with this picture because I think of Taylor. It's my favorite picture of him, and it just shows him. It's a glamour shot, and it shows him with his crazy beard, his crazy hair, after a long day's work, sweat coming down his nose. And I think this picture really symbolizes Taylor very well. And because of that, Chantel, I thought it was really cool that you love this picture as much as you do as well. And So I had it painted of Taylor over here, and I really want you to have it and keep it and look at it, and I know that you'll get the same joy out of it as I do. The last thing I want to share with you guys is, so I'm going to a concert this weekend. It's Nas, one of Taylor's favorite rappers, and we listen to him all the time in Taylor's Jeep couldn't even hear the lyrics because the bass was going so hard. I was really hoping that Taylor would be there with me this weekend for this concert. I knew he would have loved it. He would have had a face on very similar to this face, just enjoying the show, not a care in the world. So I actually, I had this t-shirt made. You guys might like it. Of Taylor. So thank you, Tyson, for helping get that done as well. I'm going to wear this to the concert, partly because I want Taylor's goofy face to be there with me and enjoy it, and I know he will be there. But also I know inevitably people are going to come up to me and ask, hey, who's that goofy-looking dude on your shirt? And I'll be able to tell them that's my hero, Taylor, who I'm proud to say is my hero, but more importantly, I'm honored, truly honored to say that Taylor was a brother to me. So thank you guys for letting me come up here and ramble to you, and I know that you guys love Taylor as much as I do. So next I want to bring up Caleb Rodriguez, who is one of Taylor's best friends and old roommate.
I just wanted to start by saying how excited I am to see everyone here. It's an honor to be here, and I'm sure Taylor would be happy to see everyone as well. Most of all, I just wanted to just share a few short words of how I remember Taylor, and a lot that I've been thinking about the past few days, past 2 weeks. I remember Taylor as Taylor, Tay, T-Lee, Tay-Tay, as well as some other inappropriate names that we always seem to come up with for each other. But I'll always remember him as a brother. Taylor was the guy that everyone wanted to have around no matter what. Any event that I was planning on having or that I was going to, it seemed like it wouldn't be quite the same without Taylor there. Whether it was camping, golfing, floating the river, disc golfing, or just a night out with friends, Taylor was the guy we all wanted there. Not only because he would entertain everyone with his reckless, off-the-wall, fun-loving personality, but also because he was generous, kind-hearted way of making everyone feel involved and important. Some days Taylor would break out in song and dance in the middle of a store when his favorite song comes on. Other days, he would talk your ear off, asking you a million questions, which always made me feel important. I think we can all agree that Taylor could be pretty goofy and unpredictable at times. You never knew if he was going to show up with a mohawk, or an afro, or a Fu Manchu mustache, or a pinstriped collared shirt with the sleeves cut off, or with no shirt at all. It seemed like Taylor was found a way to be the life of the party, on the golf course, the campground, parties at Brad's house, parties at the Denham's Lake house, parties at Cody's house. He was always the guy everyone wanted around because there was never a dull moment with him there. He always had a football to play catch with and loud music to party to. Tay never seemed to care what anyone thought of him. That's the lesson I've learned here. He's taught me a lot from all of this. And I know that today I'll be listening to gangster rap and drinking gin and juice in his honor. Next, I'd like to introduce Jordan Phillips up here, good friend of Taylor's. He wants to say a few words as well.
Where do you start with this guy? an endless spirit, passion for life, and compassion for those all around him. Taylor took care of the people in his life. He loved those for who they were and loved you even more for all that you weren't. I feel as if he was always trying to better understand the people around him. He was in touch in a lot of ways that other people aren't. And I think we would all be better people for being more like him. I was lucky enough to have been talking to him quite a bit up until August 10th, playing this video game with hundreds of thousands of players, and Taylor trying to be number one, you know. That was Taylor. A closet perfectionist. He never did anything half-measured. And when he was passionate about something, he never let it go. He was passionate about things in a way that made you passionate about them. His enthusiasm was infectious and never lost on me, not lost on any of us, I'd imagine. The week following the day before he passed, we've been staying up night after night. Haley and Amanda having to put up with us, playing and talking about this game, but really the conversation is almost always turning philosophical or about Game of Thrones, depending on how close to Sunday we were. And for all the people in this room that I've never had the opportunity to meet, I feel close to you, not in this way of our loss, but because Taylor made you alive for me in every conversation we ever had. We were always talking about past and present friends, people he had grown up with, the family and the love he had for them. I've been offered a unique perspective on his life for not really having known him the entirety of it through the love for all of you. The night before he passed, he told me how he always wanted to be an uncle, that Erin would make a great mom, and how she had a great husband in Josiah. Chantel, passionate and brave, tenacious and resilient. These qualities of yours that he had shared with me, I believe, reflect in him just as well. And Kyle, if it wasn't going to be Erin making him an uncle, it had to be you, right? So I had asked him, "Are there any lucky ladies in Kyle's life?" And he's like, he could. Damn it, that guy, he could get any girl he wanted. He had way more girlfriends than I ever had. Yeah, that's Taylor. That's the metric, more girlfriends than Taylor ever had. I love that. He saw the spark in you, He believed in you probably more than you know. And Brad, he always talked about you, not just the night before he passed, but all the time. You were a constant in his life, and someone I believe had taught him a lot about how to be a man. I know that he had an immense amount of pride in having you as a father. He lacked nothing in life, and that's made evident by everyone's presence here today. He is our hero. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Jared Gore, wherever you're at. Come to the stage.
Still kind of up there, Cody. But no, I feel like I should do this a little bit properly. It'd be kind of weird if I dress nice for a situation for Taylor. So I gotta keep his. I never actually liked these shirts. I always thought they were super weird how it's tight around the collar and open in this, but for some reason I almost understand it today. It's kind of he wore these for anything. But yeah, so I knew I was going to read off this sheet, otherwise I'll probably jump around and forget what I'm talking about. But I knew talking about my best friend in these circumstances wouldn't be easy. And with that person being Taylor Whitney Lee, it makes it even harder. Where do I even start with him? I'm not short on stories, but to properly portray his personality is a real challenge. As you all know, Taylor was fun and outgoing, which is why he was so popular. He was so easy to love. His personality was so big and genuine all at the same time that sometimes new people had a hard time adjusting to his character, but still ended up loving him anyways. I actually can't remember the first time Taylor and I met, but I can remember countless times he'd watch my back and look out for me like a brother would. Back in 2010, when I was in need of a part-time job, I applied at multiple businesses but never even got a response. Taylor told me that there was an opening at his job at Cascade Grill, and he said so many good things about me to his managers that when I went into my interview, I already had the job. Taylor had only worked there for a few months before I started, yet he knew all the gossip, who was seeing who not to ask for help, who to watch your mouth around. And don't even think about talking to that girl, Brianna. She's only 16 and her mom's a manager here. In only a few months, he knew more about the people he worked with than I would ever know after even years after working with him. Sorry, just a second. Oh, dang it. But I really enjoyed working with Taylor. besides Cascade, we did other little handiwork with one another, digging ditches, clearing debris, fixing a hole in his dad's wall after tackling me into it, throwing parties, cleaning up after the parties, and there's many other skilled tasks we've done, but I can't mention those. When I moved to Wilsonville in June, I asked Taylor on short notice. It was within the week that we were moving, if he could help move up 3 flights of stairs. And without hesitating, he took a day from work so he could stay until we were done. The same day, he walked around the neighborhood with me and a can of tuna because we couldn't find one of our cats got out, and it was just hidden really deep under the couch. But I'll never forget that. We got to kind of walk around with just me and him, and me and him could always get so kind of like what Jordan was saying, is he's so philosophical. Every time you talk to him, he just gets so in depth. I mean, we're just looking for a cat, and pretty soon I can't even remember what we're talking about. It's just talking about moving and how fast life is kind of cruising along, you know. And actually, this isn't written on, but one of the things I thought about the picture of him, he's the lookalike for Happy Gilmore's caddy. And he actually got a beer cozy hat, and it was the red one with the beers in it. And he just wanted it for the comfort of drinking beers a little bit easier, you know. But we started cracking up because a bunch of us immediately noticed, like, you look just like Happy Gilmore's caddy. And he didn't like it at all. He was totally like, I don't want to look like him. He didn't want to wear it. And then about a month later, Halloween came around, and he was dressed as the caddy guy with the beer cups on his hat. So it was just anything for a laugh. And another funny story is that hiking trip where Cody was scared. He's holding on with both hands, and Taylor's walking with one hand. He's so fearless that on our way back, the sun was coming down. We're like, hey, we need to get back. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere. And as we're cruising down the hill, we get close to the bottom. We're like, where the heck is Taylor at? I know he's running around. It's all right, but still, we couldn't find him, and we're yelling his name. He's not anywhere to be found. We're at the top of Snow Peak, so we literally, we need to find him. And we start walking back, just yelling into the woods, and all of a sudden we finally hear this faint, hey, hey. He tried taking a shortcut. He thought he could beat us all and impress us, but ended up just kind of backfiring. But he wasn't scared. He was just upset he had to walk that far back up a hill. But one of our best pastimes would have to be longboarding. We could easily ride for 10 hours at a time. Even night didn't stop us. We got spacers that go between your deck and trucks of a longboard, and they had little lights on them, so we're legal to ride even at night. And we explored Portland, Salem, and every hill you could possibly imagine in North Albany. Even the backside of Skyliner Hill, if anyone's seen that hill, just ends on an abrupt stop. That's the only hill I can really remember him actually crashing onto. The other time would be we were practicing sliding down at the bottom of this hill, and he's trying to do it bigger than me, I guess, and he slid out, flung the board, and it hit a gutter and completely broke his truck in half. So yeah, we explored all those hills. Taylor put a lot of blood, sweat, and miles into his longboard until it was stolen, and he was absolutely devastated from it. Everywhere we went, Taylor had his eye out for that board. It lasted about 3 years we didn't have that, and he would mention it anytime we'd bring up longboards. I still don't have it. I just can't find it. But it finally ended when he was driving down 34th Street in Albany, and he happened to see a kid riding what looked to be his longboard. And he's going this way, this kid's riding that way. And he's like, he's got to see it. It's his only opportunity. So he flipped a complete U-turn in the middle of 34th Street. And then proceeded to come down, get in front of the kid, and actually cut across traffic, went up on the curb and stopped him. And he pretty much told him, he's like, let me take a look at this longboard. He's looking at it. We used to draw on our wheels because it looked cool and you'd spin. And so he knew that the wheels were definitely his. He had a couple stickers on it. It was absolutely his board. And he told the kid, he's like, this is my board. And he just kind of walked off with it. Sometimes I just like to show up at Taylor's house unannounced. Mainly because when I was coming, or if he knew I was coming, he would always tell me to bring something. For the first little while, it always threw me off. I'd ask, what? And he'd probably just surprise me. I'm like, did you need candy, a drink, food? I mean, are you actually in need of something? Like, what do you want? But he always just came back with, just surprise me, it's all right. And no matter what I brought him, he was happy that I was just thinking about him, even if he made me do it. But then, of course, on top of that, he always returned the favor, but I never had to ask. When he went to Hawaii, he brought me back this little surfer tiki guy. He loved to give gifts and surprises. He loved to have that edge on people. Even though Taylor had given some really great gifts in his life, I think everyone here today can agree that we all share the best gifts, the life that he shared with all of us and the memories we made along the way with him. That's it. I believe Mac Denham is coming up next. Thanks, guys.
Tough to follow. That was all really beautiful. Be true to yourself. I don't know if Taylor ever actually outright said those words like that, and if he did, it was probably more along the lines of, screw them, be you and who cares what they think. But the way he lived and the way he carried himself inspired those around him to fearlessly be themselves. And it sounds simple when you just say it, but in reality, being your goofy or weird or vulnerable or whatever self is a pretty difficult thing to do in life. And when each and every one of us, especially with all the stories that we just heard, think about Taylor, that's the first place we go. No excuses and unapologetically Taylor. A take it or leave it, this is who I am attitude. And we're all here because we love Taylor Whitney Lee. He was my brother. And he's had an immensely positive effect on each of our lives. And while it may be true that he's more than likely broken something of yours, he's also always owned up to it and probably paid you back for it twice over in some unconventional but hilariously sweet way. And the weird thing about that for me, I was never really that mad at him for any of his antics or frustrating behavior or constantly taking things to and more than likely past the limit. That's probably what I loved him most for. I admired him so much. And I looked up to him for his courage and his head-on outlook on life. I remember when we were kids at the lake house, I was teaching him how to wakeboard. Something that at the time, we were pretty young, I had been doing for a couple of years, and aspects of it still completely terrified me. And Taylor took to it as if he was just this invincible god and nothing could hurt him. And within the first 2 tries, he was up and riding, which is incredible on its own. But on what must have been his 3rd time even standing up on the board, he started carving outside the wake, something that took me weeks to build up the courage for. And as if that wasn't impressive enough, his first day on a wakeboard, he started just sending it into the wake, carving hard and catching air. Crashing harder and more painfully than I'd ever seen anybody crash before in my entire life. Probably the most gruesome face plants ever. But every single time we turned around to go pick him up, he just had this huge smile on his face, begging to get back up and go again. And that's how he lived his entire life. His determination to do whatever he set out to do was amazing to me. And his ability to inspire in others that same fearless attitude toward every obstacle in life was a big part of why I think people gravitated toward him. That, and he was fun as hell. You all, well, at least a lot of you probably know this story, but Taylor was once under review for expulsion at West Albany. Now, the reason is why Taylor was one of the funniest and sweetest people ever. It was shortly after Christmas, and one of the trees we had used to decorate for the holidays was still up. And so Taylor decided to take that tree and plant it in one of the toilets. Why? Because it was dying and it needed water. Now, I don't know whether that was his original reason or it's just the one he gave after the fact to try and save himself, but both are equally impressive. But the real impressive part of this story is what happened when we all heard that he may be expelled for it. We fought for him. We pleaded with the faculty, with Susie, and even had some t-shirts made up that simply just said, "Keep T." And to me, that says so much about his character. That he was such a joy to be around, that he inspired a movement to keep him close and to keep him with us. And that's what I want us all to do moving forward. Keep T. Keep Taylor in your hearts. Every time you face a challenge or a fear or see something you know you should speak out against or have a difficult adventure laid out in front of you, think of Taylor and use his strength as your own to overcome your fear or to speak your truth and to live life with the honor, power, and love that was Taylor Whitney Lee. Keep T. Up next, I'd like to invite Matt McHenry, one of Taylor's best friends.
Well, thanks for coming. I'm not as prepared as the other guys. I have lots of stories, but I have a few I'd like to share. One time at football practice, Cody was talking about music, and everyone who spoke before me talked about music. He decided to put his iPod in his football helmet, and he strategically wrapped his earbuds all around the air pads, and he was in there Thursday just jamming out. One time they fell out, and well, he got in trouble for that too. So, but that's the kind of person he was. He was relentless in his own efforts. He was not waiting until halftime to get into the game, just like life. He was there living it to his fullest. So there's also we were in high school one time. We were going to see this concert called the Meat Puppets, and there's a group of us. There's a pre-band before. We were waiting for the Meat Puppets to get on, and he comes in and he's like telling them to get off the stage. You're done. You're over with. Where's the Meat Puppets? By 10 minutes later, he didn't get to see the concert. We were watching the concert. We went out looking for him later and found him next door at this restaurant just eating bread. And we go in there and we're like, oh, can we get some food too? And the waitress is just like, no, he's okay right there. We're allowing this. And by that time we get out and get back. And we're going up Sunset, and he wakes up and he's like, anybody want any waffles? So, I mean, me and him worked together in North Dakota, and we'd always fight. And one time he'd start throwing dirt clods at me, and I'm trying not to retaliate back. But the one time I do, I hit him right in the eye, and he's bleeding, and we both almost get fired and sent home. But from longboarding to football from middle school to high school and the after years, I just want to say Taylor's a really good guy. Besides everything that some people may think, he's a good kid. So, Mr. David Schaefer.
So I was in third grade when the Whitney Lees moved next door with 3 kids that were about the same age as us, and I was really looking forward to having a friend on the hill. But Taylor was 6 months older than me, and he instantly became a lot more than a friend. He was like my slightly older brother. We did everything together that normal kids do growing up. We rode the school bus, touched electric fences, and jumped on the trampoline. One time that ended up and me getting a concussion and having to go to the ER because Taylor's head was a lot harder than mine. And we were playing crack the egg with our older siblings, and we hit heads. And he felt really bad about it, but it didn't hurt him at all, and I got completely knocked out. And then middle school hit. We both thought that we were destined to be professional skateboarders. So we grew our hair out and ordered skateboards from a magazine called CCS and spent hours every single evening out there in front of his house. Brad even helped us build a wooden box with like metal coping on the side of it, and that thing sat out there for a couple of years. And I can now say with certainty that we both sucked. Sorry, Taylor. But I wouldn't have traded those years for anything. That's where we had some of the greatest talks. I learned a lot from him in those couple of years. Number one is Nirvana is the greatest rock band of all time. 2, it's totally possible to have relationships completely based off of AOL Instant Messenger. And 3, he gave me the birds and the bees talk. You can only imagine how that went. But I guess I don't have any kids yet, so maybe, I don't know if it's a good job or a bad job, but I'll never forget that talk. When it came to our hill, our parents always had each other's backs. That's how I think they felt about it, at least. To us in high school, it meant that there was one neighbor in the way of us having a party. One time, my dad went down there and saw Kyle on the barbecue. And so he decided to walk around back and say hi. At least that's how he always told the story. I think he was just nosy. But he walked around back and looked through the window and saw Taylor, about 14 at the time, sipping on a Budweiser. In his defense, he could grow a beard at 14 better than I can now, and better than most 21-year-olds. So without saying anything, my dad turned around and went home. And when Brad got back, he invited Brad up for a cocktail. Taylor came along with him, probably nervous that he was going to get in some trouble. Didn't know what my dad could have possibly seen while Brad was gone. And so my dad asked Brad, "What do you want to drink? Gin and tonic, whiskey and Coke?" Brad made his drink choice. And then my dad looked at Taylor. "What about you, Taylor?" "I think I'm out of Budweiser long necks." Brad looked over at Taylor, who didn't say a word. He just stood up, walked outside where Steve-O was waiting, and walked home. I'm probably not supposed to tell stories like that in a church, but it's Taylor's day, and he was always one for pushing the rules a little bit. Hashtag keep T. But Taylor was so much more than just a rule pusher. I was very privileged to stay good friends with him in high school and after, and to see what a great man he grew to be. He's one of the strongest, hardest working people I've ever met. Not very many people want to go to North Dakota for work, but it was almost like he looked forward to it. He had a big head, a huge smile, and an even larger heart. Anytime I've ever needed help with anything, whether it's towing my car, helping me load the truck to move to school this year, or looking over my family and our dogs, he was one call away, one text away, and he'd be there in 2 minutes, no matter what he was doing. He'd help anybody in the room today with any task and not accept anything in return. That's just who he was. Sorry. Never have I met somebody that stayed so true to his own character and happy spirit in every situation. A few months ago, I was driving up the hill and I saw him outside working, and so I stopped by to say hi to him. And he was replacing one of the back windows in his car because the other one had broken. And it had that like purple tint on it, and none of his other windows were tinted. And so I asked him, "Are you gonna tint the other windows or take the window tint off of that one?" And he goes, "No, I'm gonna leave it. That's my fancy seat. I can chauffeur people around in that seat." And that's just how he was. People say that one another a glass half full kind of person, and Taylor was a glass quarter full kind of person. He could find the best out of any situation, and it was truly amazing. I don't think it was possible to talk to Taylor for more than 5 seconds without laughing, and his laugh was also infectious. If there are any administrators here, they might disagree with that, but I'm sure that after he left their office, they had a few laughs as well. The amount of support here today shows just how many lives Taylor's touched. We all love you, Whaler. Don't get in too much trouble up there.
Life has come a long way since yesterday, I say. And it's not the same old thing over again, I say. Just do what you feel and don't you fool yourself, I say. 'Cause I can't make you happy unless I am. I say, I've got to be true to myself. 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 Day in, day out, I've asked many questions, I say, only to find the truth that never changes, I say. If you don't deal with it, it keeps killing you a little by little, I say. Call me selfish if you will, my life I alone can live. I say, I've got to be true to myself. Got to be true to myself. Anyway now, got to be true to myself. Got to be true to myself. I don't care if it hurts. I'm tired of lies and all these games. I've reached a point in life. No longer can I be this way. Don't come crying to me. I too have shed my share of tears. I'm moving on, yes, I'm grooving on. Well, I'm finally free. I've got to be true to myself. Got to be true to myself. Anyway, y'all, got to be true to myself. Got to be true to myself. Come on now, got to be true. Got to be true. Got to be true to myself. Anyway, y'all, got to be true. Got to be true. Got to be true to myself.
Can I get your hand to ride on? Just a piece of leg to bite on. What a night to fly my kite on. Do you wanna flash a light on? Take a look, it's on display for you. Coming down all night today. Did you meet your fortune teller? Get it off with no propeller. Do it up, it's on with Stella. What a way to finally smell her. It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things we've been through. That I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
First you both go out your way and the vibe is feeling strong, and what's small turn to a friendship turn to a bond, and that bond will never be broken, the love will never get lost. And when brotherhood come first, then the line will never be crossed. Established it on our own when that line had to be drawn, and that line is what we reach, so remember me when I'm gone. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Don't let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Well, we've all enjoyed the stories and the time, and I encourage you to remember the memories. Those of us that didn't know Taylor as well as others, what a blessing it was today to hear firsthand accounts of the history that he's created. At this time, as we dismiss, if you could all please stand. I'm going to dismiss us with a word of prayer. And thank you all for coming, and let's bow our heads, please. Lord, we thank you for Taylor's life, the impact that he's had on so many people, God. And we just thank you, Father, for the stories that we've heard today. And we ask now that you would comfort those that grieve. We pray for the family, Lord, that you will surround them with your loving arms, God, and just help them know that you are there, that you have promised to never, ever leave us nor forsake us. And as we leave here today, Father, let us keep these memories close to our hearts. And Father, may you use each one of us to share the excitement of a life like Taylor's with those around us. And we thank you most of all for your Son, who you sent to die for each and every one of us, and it's in his name that we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
I'd like to make just a couple of announcements before we go. We'd like to invite everyone to the gym, to the gymnasium across the way there, for a time of fellowship and food. You have in your memorial folders, you have an insert. If you have shared a story with the family or a memory, and you'd like for the family to have that, there are baskets in the back. You could give it to a Fisher Funeral Home staff member, or if you want to take it home and work on it, you could certainly get it to the family. But please feel free to share a memory with the family. We'd like the family to be able to exit first, and then have you go join them in the reception area. So please continue to support each other as you remember the life of Taylor. And I'd like to excuse the family at this point, and then as I see them clear the doors, then we'll turn everyone else loose.